Welcome to The People Project, the podcast about my journey to understand what it takes to create great company cultures. My name is Jonathan Richards. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome everybody to episode 3 of The People Project. In today's episode, we're following on from our panel discussion in episode 2, and our series finale invites some of my colleagues from Breathe into the studio. What we're looking to do today is to understand how we can start implementing what we've learned from Mike, from Mind, as well as the professional contributions that we had from Jackie, Clive and Marketa in the last episode. And the overall aim that we're trying to do here at Breathe is to improve the mental health and well-being of the people that work for us at the company. That's really very much at the heart of what we're doing. So today I want to welcome back in the People Project's producer and a member of the Time to Change Breathe group, Rachel Down. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I've also got with me Breathe's Head of People, Susie Hunter.
Hello, thanks for having me as well.
And the person that championed our Time to Change movement, Sophie Crossman. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, morning.
For anybody who's missed previous episodes, you can find them via the People Project podcast on Apple or Spotify or any chosen provider. But without any more from me, let's jump into this episode. We're looking to cover our learnings and practical tips and guidance for how to implement a great mental health protection in the workplace. And we're discussing what's worked for our team of 38 and growing, and areas that we'd like to improve. So if we want to start with a bit of background, Sophie, it was just over a year ago that we sat and decided that we were going to start this journey around mental health and well-being at Breathe. Can you tell us about our journey into Time to Change?
Breathe as a fast-growing company. When I joined a few years ago, I think I might have been employee number 14 or 15, we sort of very quickly grew to being 20 and then 25 and then 30. It just became apparent that now's maybe a good time to start thinking about mental health and really trying to open up the conversation within the company. So we did a little bit of research and we came across Mind, and they were running what they called Time to Change, which was an initiative. We sort of looked into that, got a good understanding of what they were trying to do, and we thought that would be a really brilliant place for us to start. So their idea is that companies basically sign a Time to Change pledge to really commit to being able to open up the conversation about mental health in the workplace. So we decided, okay, as one of our company goals that year, that was something that we were gonna have a look into. I feel like it's been a huge success, really. We wanted to start the Time to Change really by understanding what the status was at Breathe at the time. So we ran a survey just to kind of understand how our employees were feeling. It was an anonymous survey. It included a question: how much do Breathe do at the moment to do with mental health? We knew, okay, actually we're right at the start of our journey here, so we weren't expecting 5 stars for that at all. Another question that we asked the employees was, if you were feeling unwell due to mental health, what would you do? Would you come to work anyway? Would you let your manager know the real reason why you weren't coming to work? Or would you let your manager know a different reason why you weren't coming to work? So we just wanted to get an understanding of how people were feeling, what the current situation was. And my objective really as part of the Time to Change team was to try and sort of move us forward, really.
Just let me ask, the questions that we asked in the survey, were they ones that came to us from the Time to Change organisation, or were they ones that we created?
We created those.
So I think probably it'd be a really good thing, Rachel, if we can share those questions. Because I think they worked incredibly well, didn't they? I just want to step back a little bit, Sophie, on the Time to Change process. So they took us through a process, didn't they? They had certain steps that we needed to follow to get the pledge to a point of signing.
That was it. There was a 7 or 8 stage action plan that needed to be done, which included things like you needed to get senior leadership buy-in, your kind of senior leadership team to be open to this, pushing it forward. We needed to get employee champions around the company understanding what the initiative was about. We needed to think about training people within mental health. It was really a guideline that they'd sent. So it was 7 or 8 stages, and we to sign the pledge, we needed to let Mind know what we were going to do in each of those sections, so an action plan.
Was it arduous?
It's tough. I think really, really difficult. Yeah, really difficult. I think we started by getting the Time to Change team together. So we said, right, this is not a one-person job. So there was 4 of us that got together. We met every 2 weeks. Yeah, worked out how we were going to move forward. The template was really helpful. So the steps that Mind had given us were good. Once we had an understanding of how we were going to move forward, not so difficult.
So we started thinking about it sort of 25 to 30 employees. Was that about the right size, or would you recommend companies started earlier or a bit later?
Earlier.
Early
as you can, I think. 3 or 4 employees, I think everybody can do something.
Also, if we look at the stats from how many workers are expected to have some sort of mental health issue in the workplace, Mine says that it's 1 in 4, or translates to 3 in 5, I think they said.
Yeah, it was.
It kind of means that it should be available for everyone, whatever size you are.
Susie, you've been with us, for 3 months now?
Yep, that's right.
So when you joined, when did you become aware that maybe Breathe were doing something a little bit different?
I think probably even from interview stage and kind of researching the company, I think it became very clear that it's kind of like a part of our culture, and there was a lot of awareness around it coming out. But certainly as soon as I started, it was really obvious that there was a lot of work going on. As soon as I came in, there's the Time to Change picture, which I think is yourself and the team.
Oh, I thought you meant the elephant in the room.
No. Yeah, I would say compared to kind of experience I've had in the past, I think what we're doing here at Breathe is brilliant. Already we're kind of sort of stepping forward, I think, and making a difference. And I think just the openness as well that I feel in terms of people talking about mental health is really apparent. Yeah.
And would you say it was a contributing factor to you wanting to join Breathe? In other words, does it encourage people to take jobs?
Absolutely it does, yeah. And the feedback that we've had as well from candidates, as we're recruiting, people do research on Breathe, and it really comes across to them the approach we have, like a people first approach, the mental health culture, and people want to work here before they even come for the interview. So I think that speaks volumes.
Right. Okay. So sort of carrying on from that journey, you mentioned Mind, Sophie. We had Mike Ellen, who was on the first of the podcasts of this series, but he actually came in and gave a talk to all the line managers here. I guess not just Sophie, but for any of us, what were the standouts that we learned from that? Some things that we could really put into practice.
As a line manager myself, it's communication, and I think it's the informal chats with your employees, just understanding how people are feeling and just having a conversation about it.
Yeah, for me it was almost just the normality of the situation. It's something that is with us. As Rachel, you mentioned the stats from Mind. It's not something that can come to an organisation, it's something that's at an organisation. So every one of the businesses that I come across can almost guarantee that there's somebody in there who's suffering to a degree of mental illness. Just drawing on something that Marketa said in the last of the interviews, she was very clear in differentiating between mental health and mental illness, in that we all talk about physical health, and we understand that everybody has a level of physical health, and some is good and some is not so good, and likewise with mental health. It doesn't have to become mental illness, and as you say, with conversations, with communication, we as employers can help protect that. Rachel, you mentioned that something that Mike was talking about to do with transactional analysis. Now that's a researcher's term, that's a professional term. What does it really mean?
So I did a bit of research on this because I hadn't actually heard of it until Mike said it. It's a theory that was put in place by Eric Berne. He was a psychologist in the 1960s. I think American, so don't quote me on that one. Basically, it talks about communication and how to speak to your team or to anyone, and with any sort of transaction, they say a communication is a transaction. You can speak from 3 ego states, and the 3 ego states are parent, child, or adult. What Mike was explaining, and I've actually done a blog on this, so feel free to head over to our blog and have a look. But basically it was saying during the first up to 7 years of your life is a very transient period where you'll be affected and taught almost how to react to things. So if you have a parent who is a little bit more critical, as opposed to, apparently there are 2 types of parents. You've got a nurturing or a critical one. If you've got one that's a bit more critical and you speak within that tone, so you're going to be looking for problems, you're going to be looking for things to criticise, as opposed to supporting or celebrating the successes, or even seeing failure as something that's very natural and a way for us to grow. If you speak to someone from that mindset, then it triggers a response which is of a childlike manner. So you've either got an adaptive child, which is someone who will just say, okay, all right, I will do whatever. But then that also has its problems because it means that they're not being able to grow, make decisions for themselves. So when they get into adulthood, it's a lot harder. Otherwise, you've got the rebellious child. So that's when they just say, no, I'm not going to do anything. So Mike gave a really good example, actually, about a situation that he'd had in his workplace where there was a man who was asked to work over the weekend. The response, because of how he was asked and what was expected, was, no, I'm not going to do it. And I think that's something that's really important to actually take note of and understand. So I found, since hearing and learning about that from Mike, I've actually found that when I'm having conversations, I'm able to analyse, actually, is this coming from an adult to adult perspective? Is this based on logic? Is this based on emotion? And it's helping me, because I also have mental health issues. So I have mental illness, so I'm diagnosed with depression and anxiety. But I found it's really helped because it's kind of given me a bit more of a blueprint of, oh, okay, that's maybe why I reacted like that in previous, situations. But this is how I can react. And one thing I have learned is the individual is responsible for their own behaviours and their reactions. Otherwise, you're not responsible for anyone else. And taking that blame off of yourself, I think, is really important. I would definitely suggest to any company that the PAC theory or Eric Berne's transactional analysis should be part of your mental health toolkit.
I think what we've got there is a really good framework for was like guiding managers in their communications, and that doesn't always mean in a one-to-one or meeting, but as you said, like everything in a transaction every day. So yeah, I think definitely that's something that we can look to going forward.
Definitely.
And I think it's important to provide managers with the support so that they feel it's safe to enter into conversations like this. It can be quite a scary place to be, to go into a conversation where you feel completely out of your depth, where you don't really understand it, because like most small business owners and managers, what training have we got to handle this kind of issue? Certainly the work that we went through as part of that training from Mind was really useful. One other thing that we haven't got to yet as an organisation, but I know others have, is the whole idea of mental health first aiders. Is that something that we've considered or that we're looking to implement at Breathe?
It is actually, yeah. So Sophie and I have been doing a bit of work on a wellbeing plan that we're hoping to implement quite soon. As part of that, we're looking at Mind, and definitely mental health first aider is something that we'll definitely be doing, isn't it? I know that we have had mental health first aiding for line managers, so that's something that we'll continue to do, but also I think it's important maybe to have one person in the organisation who's a bit of a go-to for mental health, people can talk to, and that they have the skill, have the training to enable them to have those conversations.
Who do you see as that person? I'm just thinking for other companies, other small businesses that are learning as well. We had Mike in for the training, which I think was pretty cost effective actually.
Yeah, very.
Wasn't that expensive. It was what, a full day or half a day?
I think it was half a day. It was an afternoon session, wasn't it?
So it's not that time consuming, and actually what you're gaining from it is it's worth so much more.
Absolutely. I mean, I think actually the more people can have the training, the better. I do like the idea of having maybe kind of like a go-to person if somebody's not comfortable to talk to their line manager, for example. I mean, hopefully that wouldn't be the case, but it's just, I think, nice to have like an alternative person that they might kind of want to open up to. And I don't see that person has to have like a particular role, like they don't have to be a manager. They could just be somebody who has a really supportive nature, that they want to be that person, they want to help people, and are willing to take on that role, I suppose.
So it's not another responsibility for the HR. So it's actually mental health is everyone's responsibility.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Between March and April 2019, we surveyed over 1,000 employees from private sector UK SMEs. Nick, you're behind this report. Can you summarise for the listeners what they can look forward to?
Thank you, Ewan. So the Sick Report 2019 examines reasons for sick-related absences in the workplace and attitudes towards different types of illness, and we look very specifically at attitudes towards mental health and the extent to which symptoms of this are regarded as an acceptable reason for absence. Lots of numbers in the report. It's ideal if you're looking to benchmark your business and reasons for sick-related absences against national trends of other SMEs.
And you can download that report now from breathehr.com/resources, and whilst you're there you can enjoy a host of other blog posts and keep up to date with all the hottest topics in HR. And finally, don't forget, keep in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook by searching for Breathe HR.
I also want to touch on a couple of other things that we've tried that maybe weren't the most successful. They had the part to play. Sophie, we had the idea that I touched on earlier on, the elephant in the room. Tell us about what we tried to do there and how well that worked, or indeed didn't.
So the elephant in the room, it is really about what's stopping us talking about mental health at work. This was all about collecting information really about how our employees were feeling. We needed a way to do that. So yeah, we ordered a big picture of an elephant, a nice A3 size picture, and we actually asked the team to write on the picture what's actually stopping us talking about mental health at work. And although it's not an ongoing project, some of the information that we got from that really small exercise was really useful. So a lot of people were saying, well, actually, I'm worried that it might show a weakness. I'm worried that how my manager's going to feel. Is it going to look like I'm not capable of doing my job? So once we had actually seen those concerns, gathered that information, we could then really start to open up the conversation and drive this forward. What we really wanted to do is start with trust. So it's creating that environment where the employees know, actually, if I disclose this thing about myself, I need to know where I stand with that it's not maybe going to have a negative effect, that actually other people in the company are talking, I'm not the only one talking about it. It was actually a very useful exercise, a one-off exercise to gather information.
The thing I really liked about it was, the thing wasn't covered in writing, but what I liked was it was a baby step. It was a small step in the right direction to say to people around the organisation, it's okay, it's safe. And one or two people said, okay, I'm going to challenge you, let's see if it's safe, and they did, and they found out it was safe. So then when we brought in another initiative, a few more people felt comfortable, and slowly but surely I think people are working out that it's an okay thing to have conversations around mental health at Breathe. Because that for me led on to another initiative, Sophie, that you launched, which was the Bring Your Own Breakfast. Tell us about that, because I think that's something that's really interesting and really useful to share, because it's such a great idea and so easy to implement.
Of course, keep in mind that our line managers had had a bit of training at this point. We'd done the elephant in the room. The conversations were already starting to flow. So yeah, we introduced Bring Your Own Breakfast between 8:30 and 9 o'clock every other week on a Thursday, I think. We run a sort of a get together early morning chat session, and these can either be completely informal with no topic or agenda, but the idea is to have a conversation about mental health at work, and just as Jonathan said earlier, just normalise it as much as you possibly can. The tricky thing with it was that we have everyone in the room, or we have 5, 6, 7 people, whoever wanted to turn up, and it's getting that conversation from what's everybody doing at the weekend to, actually guys, we're here to kind of talk about something specific, but we wanted to keep it relaxed. And that's where the elephant in the room actually became really helpful, because we said, right, actually we've gathered this information, let's have a conversation about it. Let's have a few croissants and a cup of tea, which always helps get people along to things, if you can offer just a cup of tea and some biscuits or something like that. But it was great, and everyone just chatted, and then it's 9 o'clock and we go back to work, and everyone's small
engage.
baby steps, but
Yeah.
oh my goodness, amazing.
Just to add to that, the first Spring Learn Breakfast I went to was a session focused on anger, and we watched a video, I think it was a TED Talk, on how actually a bit of anger is good, reasons why it's good, and then we all kind of went around the group and we shared like the last time we were angry, like why we were angry, like what led to it, and actually it was just nice to share. Like everybody shared, and we had a laugh as well. Like we weren't angry at that time. I just think, as Sophie just said, we all came back into the office and felt like ready to go for the day, and it was just nice, I guess, to share a bit more than you normally would.
It's building that trust, isn't it? That I think that helps. As soon as you open up, I found that when I went to, I think the first one I did, I joined along, it was only I think my first or second week here, and I've come from a media background where mental health was before not discussed. So I remember my dad, who's a professional, saying to me, every job that I've had, don't disclose it. So actually coming here, I was called into the office by our old HR lady and asked to complete the health questionnaire. But she said it in such a way that actually I knew that I was safe to disclose that I have mental health issues and that sometimes I do struggle. And that was so positive for me. I can't even explain it. I think it's so great to actually be able to be open about this. And therefore when I went to the Time to Change breakfast meeting, it was just another thing that I thought, wow, this company really is committed. This is what is going to keep us going and driving us forward, is the fact that we care about who we've got in the team and that we are a team.
I think it's fair to say that the whole company was pretty moved by the way you felt able to publicly share your journey.
Thank you.
Your mental health journey. I think that was I don't know, I can't really say it was a turning point because we were definitely on that journey, but it was definitely an acceleration point. It just brought it home to all of us that, again, as I said it earlier on, this is here, it's part of any business. Also, sort of slight change of tack, but still based around that. I'm sure we'll have a group of listeners who will be saying, okay, this is good, this is nice. Breathe are in a lucky position, they're growing fast, and they've got the space to be able to do this. Not all businesses will have the space, maybe the freedom to be able to put all of this in place, because let's face it, running a business is hard, especially as the economy starts to get harder. Can we look around the business and see business benefit to this? Is there a real provable business benefit? And what about the research that Breathe's done? Have we seen something to prove that this is worth it?
Yeah, actually we have just conducted a report called the SICK report, which you can find on Breathe as well as in the resources section, that basically says that for SMEs we can generate more than £2 trillion to the UK economy every year, but our research also shows that £900 million of that is lost to sickness absence. So that is a huge well that we could actually be making more of an opportunity for. And then also the fact that 58% of people have reported that they took a sick day for mental health reasons last year. So surely anything that helps to build awareness and to show empathy and compassion within the office is going to be a good thing. It's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, and that's a really good point actually, in that an awful lot of mental health awareness is all about preventing mental illness. And it's only when it tips over into mental illness that it starts to cost a company in time. So absolutely, the numbers really seem to stack up.
If you turn up at your desk every day and you're still there but you're not engaged, that's just as bad and just as difficult for the company as it is if you took the whole day off sick. But actually, if you took the day off sick, then you're able to recharge, you're able to rest, and then you can come back and actually focus on your work. And I found that really interesting actually, that there are these three terms now for different ways of working in the office or outside the office. Absenteeism is obviously, it's meant to be something where you actually take holiday but you work whilst you're on holiday. That to me just shows, right, if you look at your company, watch the people at the desk, like actually take an interest, check in with them, and if you think they're a bit stressed, if you think that they're working late, they're working through their lunch times, is there anything that you can do? Like, what support can you give them? Just saying, I've noticed you're a bit stressed, or I've noticed that you've been working a lot. Is there anything I can do to help? Have you booked all of your holidays? I think that's a massive thing. We had Jackie saying earlier about, in our last episode, about how actually taking longer holidays is a good thing because you actually get chance to relax and to switch off, and then when you come back you're rejuvenated.
It's actually amazing how much I've found myself in the past having to like remind people to take holiday, you know, and I think it's really important that people do use their holiday. But I guess sometimes, you know, people get engrossed in what they're doing and they kind of just don't think that they need that time, and time's flying by quickly. I think, yeah, that's really a key point actually.
Is there a trigger point actually within the year where you go, okay, right, I need to chase everyone for their holiday?
Well, I think typically organisations kind of get in towards the last quarter, but I feel earlier intervention is better. So I feel like it should be more spread out over the year. And also, like, as you come into the summer, I feel that's like a nice time as well that people might want to think about, like taking some time off, rather than you get into September, you know, the summer's past us, and then you're kind of like, right, when are you going to take a holiday? I think it depends as well on like the business and like what their needs are and the busy times that people may want to take holiday, or they may feel like they kind of want to, you know, be in the office at certain times of the year. So I think that obviously comes into play as well. But I think overall, as long as people are taking it and they're not saving it all up to take at the end, or they're losing holiday by not being able to carry it over, I think that's really the key thing.
One other thing about talking about taking time, but less big picture time, so not so much holidays. We've been running a project which we call a Headspace team, and I just think it's probably worth touching on some of that. Every 6 months we run an employee engagement survey. It's a tool that we get from our friends at We Thrive, and what was it, about 6 months ago now, just under, the survey that we ran identified that people in the organisation didn't feel able to take time away from their desks. We called it Headspace. It was just time to unwind, to process, to chill. And we were looking at ways that we could encourage them to, because they all had permission, but for some reason they weren't. And yeah, I just thought it might be worth exploring some of the ideas that we came up with for how we do that. Now, we're incredibly lucky in that we have a whole breakout area. So there's plenty of space for people to go. But how did we encourage people to use it? What were some of the things that we did?
I love a lunch break. So ever since sort of day one of working here, I'm actually quite strict with myself about my lunch break. It's something that's quite precious to me. I like to go for a walk at lunchtime. Just as a manager, if I notice my team are maybe just eating at their desk, or, you know, I will say, guys, come on, get out of here just for a minute. The other thing that I like to do is occasionally offer a walking meeting, which is a really totally free of charge. If you're going to be having a catch up or an informal one-to-one, and you don't need to take notes, you don't need to look at your computer screens, just go around the block, 10 minutes outside the office.
Or even if you do need to take notes, maybe take a phone and record it. Get back.
Perfect. Yeah.
The other thing we do is we have a internal Slack channel for wellbeing, and actually everyone's really engaged with that, and you often find, you know, a message in the morning saying who wants to go for a walk into town, you know, should we go to the park and have a picnic if it's a nice day. So I think that's really encouraging as well.
We're a tech company, so we've got a foosball table. We haven't had it for long actually, but there's plenty of activity around that. But one other thing that got introduced as a result of the Headspace team, which I've got to admit I was very sceptical about, was somebody in the team said, well, why don't we have a jigsaw on the go? We've got benches and tables and space, so why don't we do that? And I thought, oh, that's not very high tech, is it? Bless them, they went ahead, bought a jigsaw, and before we knew it, we had people from all over the organisation, of all different teams, of all different levels, just centred around the jigsaw and communicating and taking space. And I thought that was just such a great lesson. You can prejudge people. Now, there was I thinking, oh, we're a tech company, we don't do jigsaws. But actually, you know what? That's possibly the biggest single identifiable thing that we could say came out of the Headspace team. And you know, great, brilliant. I'm all for it.
It was a real hit, wasn't it? People are now bringing in their jigsaws and puzzles from home as well. So Christmas presents that haven't been opened yet are coming into the office, and everyone just gathers round, and even if you can fill in a couple of pieces each lunchtime, you feel you've really achieved something. It's brilliant.
I love that analogy even as well, the fact that you can have a jigsaw and everyone is just putting their own little bit towards it. It's kind of almost like, for me, a metaphor for actually what we're doing in the company. Like, we're all pitching in, and I think it's also really interesting because if someone else does something that you couldn't do, if someone fixes that bit of the jigsaw, then you're motivated to carry on as well. And I think that's something that we need to remember for our own strategy in the company, is actually we can achieve things, even the stuff that we didn't think we could, even as simple as a jigsaw. We're on 7, 8 now.
I lost track.
We are jigsaw queens and kings.
Now I've done my jigsaw confession. Looking to sort of head towards a wrap up. Susie, you and I were talking before we started recording about this being an ongoing journey, that it's not a do the time to change, tick the box and move on. Tell us about, just briefly, about some of the other things that we're maybe considering or that we're starting to implement.
Yeah, so I think, we've done some really great work so far with the existing team. And what I'm conscious of is, like, as we grow, we get new people onto the team, maybe new line managers, that actually we make sure the work we've done gets embedded into our organisation and our culture. So we make sure that, we do carry on with the mental health first aid training. And one thing that we've implemented actually is that when we get new people into the organisation as part of their induction plan, they have some time with a member of the Time to Change team. From day one, they know what we're about, what we do, what's available to them, kind of feel supported and able to, talk openly right from the beginning.
We've also rebranded the Time to Change team, I believe, Sophie.
Yes, it is now Space to Breathe. So Time to Change was the perfect start to our journey. Really, really helped us. It got us up and running. And wow, what a transition.
Time to Change really gave us the foundation and the structure, really, didn't it? And then since we've had that, we're now able to drive forward and actually incorporate it as part of Breathe. So that's why it incorporates Headspace, Time to Change, Space to Breathe. Yeah, I think it's a really great initiative, and it's something that definitely attracted me to the company.
And then I guess 2 bigger projects that we've got on the burner at the moment. We're looking at flexible working across the company, about how we can introduce that. So I suspect more of that to come in future issues as we start to look at agile working. But also flexible working, but around the way the seating and the way the office moves. So not just flexible in time, flexible in space. I think that's going to be a very valuable tool for us going forward, and it all helps by getting people to talk to each other more, for people to take responsibility for their own health and for each other's health.
One thing I was going to ask was, from your perspective, do you feel that this has been a success? How long do you think you've spent on mental health? How much time do you think an HR person, a small company, needs to dedicate? Is there a set time, or?
No, I don't think there is, if I chip in on that. It just has to be part of the way you think. It's just a little tiny bit extra to everything else you're doing.
And I think anything you do, and no matter how small, it's still a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So even if your organisation doesn't have a lot of time to dedicate, I think any small change that you can make will have a big impact.
Brilliant. So on that note, I want to say thank you to all. Thank you, Susie, for coming along and joining us. Thank you, Sophie, and to Rachel.
Thank you.
So that's it for episode 3. I want to say a huge thank you to our guests, Sophie, Susie, and of course Rachel, as well as a special thank you to you, our listeners. Head over to breathehr.com/resources/podcast to find links, guides, and further information from today's episode. Join us next time on The People Project, where we'll be changing tack to investigate how to create an agile workplace. We'll be looking into ways of working that enable businesses to rapidly adapt to change and promote a growth mindset. To kick things off, I'll be sitting down with Perry Timms, who's a frequent contributor to the discussions around HR, workplace learning, technology, and the future of work. He's a TEDx speaker and was described as the HR futurist by Peter Cheese, the CEO of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. So with that in mind, don't forget you can gain access to the latest episode and join us on our business culture journey by subscribing to The People Project via your chosen podcast provider.